He fired me for being too competent. The irony wasn't lost on me, not even in that moment. In the quiet, minimalist room of the Bastos Gallery, the empire I had helped build from the ground up. My name is Alice, and for 15 years, I was the director, the chief gallerist, the invisible engine behind Hector Bastos. Hector was the face of the gallery, the heir to an important name. He was charming, handsome, and impeccable at parties and art openings. He was the brand. I was the brain. While he was being photographed with celebrities, I was in a dusty warehouse negotiating the insurance for a delicate art installation. While he was giving interviews about the soul of contemporary art, I was on the phone with a billionaire collector, reminding him of his wife's birthday to secure the sale of a 7-figure painting. I managed the artists, cultivated the clients, and solved the logistical nightmares. But my success became a threat. In the art world, they whispered that Alice is the one who gets things done at Bastos. His spotlight was being dimmed by my efficiency. The excuse for my dismissal was modernization. "Alice, darling," he said, with that fake intimacy he used when he was about to pounce, "the art world is changing. We need a more digital, more aggressive vision. Your approach, it's too traditional, too rigid." He fired me 3 weeks before Art Basel, the most important art fair in the world, the event that defined the financial year for any gallery. It was a suicidal move, and we both knew it. "I understand," I said, my voice a well of calm. The shock would come later. In that moment, my brain was already calculating variables. "I know this is sudden, especially with the fair so close," he continued, a hint of panic showing through his confident facade. "And that's why, as a final favor for our long partnership, I need you to prepare a handbook, a detailed transition guide, so I can take over the operation smoothly." There it was, the confession of his total dependence. He wasn't just firing me, he was asking me to build the bridge over the abyss he had just created. I looked at him, at the man who lived off my competence while resenting it, and for the first time I saw the opportunity for a revenge not of fire and fury, but of surgical precision. "Of course, Hector," I said, and a genuine smile, the first of that conversation, formed on my lips. "It will be my pleasure to get everything organized for you. I'll make you the most complete handbook you've ever seen." He smiled back, relieved. The fool. He thought I was being docile. But in my mind, I was already writing the first chapter of his ruin. I spent my last week at the gallery not packing my things, but creating my final masterpiece, the Bastos Gallery Operations Handbook. To anyone who flipped through it, it would look like the most comprehensive and professional guide ever written. Every process, every contact, every password, it was all there. But the devil, as always, was in the details I omitted. The revenge was in what wasn't written. My secret weapon wasn't information I had, but the context I chose to not give. It was sabotage by omission, perfectly legal and absolutely devastating. The handbook said, "Key client, Mr. Blackwood. Preferred contact time, 10 a.m. Topic, confirm interest in the vortex sculpture." What the handbook didn't say was that Mr. Blackwood, our biggest collector, was an eccentric man who considered it an offense to be contacted for business before noon, and that the only way to start a conversation with him was by asking about his racehorse called Thunderbolt. Calling it 10 a.m. to talk directly about the sculpture was the fastest way to deeply annoy him. The handbook instructed, for the cloud piece by Lena Vance, use our standard carrier, Logic Art. Contact account manager, Mr. Peterson. The information was correct. What I omitted was that cloud was an extremely fragile neon installation that required a special insurance rider that Logic Art didn't cover. I always handled that with a personal call to a specialized broker, a contact that was, conveniently, not on the list.
On another page was the price list for Art Basel. Painting Abyss by Kaio Finn. List price $200,000. Perfect. Except for the fact that I had a gentleman's agreement with Kyofin's biggest buyer, a Swiss collector, who always got a 15% discount on any of his works, a privilege for her loyalty. By offering the list price, Hector would not only insult her, but would likely lose the sale. The handbook was a work of art of malicious compliance. Every page was a trap, disguised as a precise instruction. I listed the contact for the catering supplier for the fair's cocktail party, but omitted the note that he was always late and needed a confirmation call 48 hours in advance. I detailed how to operate the sales system, but didn't mention the software's quirk that made it crash if more than 3 sales were processed simultaneously. At the end of the week, I handed Hector a 200-page document, hardbound, with the gallery's logo in gold relief. He was impressed. "Incredible, Alice! This is perfect!" he said, flipping through the pages with admiration. "I knew I could count on your professionalism." "I did my best not to leave anything out, Hector," I replied with the utmost sincerity. And I hadn't. I had left him everything he needed to hang himself with the rope he had handed me. He thought he was receiving a treasure map. In reality, I had given him a labyrinth, and at its center, the minotaur of his own incompetence awaited. She was fired, but not before leaving behind a parting gift. If you love seeing arrogance walk into a perfectly laid trap, take a moment and subscribe to the channel, because this snare is about to spring. My first week of freedom was dedicated to putting my life in order and, secretly, observing from a distance. I didn't mean spies. The art world is small, and news, especially disastrous news, travels fast. The first sign of smoke came on Tuesday. A visual artist, a young talent I had discovered, and whose sole representation was with the gallery, called me concerned. "Alice, Hector called me today. He's trying to negotiate my participation in a fair in Miami, but he's saying things that don't make sense. He mentioned some shipping costs we've never had, and he doesn't seem to know about my exclusivity agreement for the Fragments series." I calmed him down. "Don't worry, Leo. Just stick to what we agreed upon. If anything seems strange, ask him to formalize it via email." Hector was following the handbook, which contained the standard contracts, but not the dozens of addendums and verbal agreements that I managed in my head. He was trying to navigate a minefield using a map that only showed the flowers. The second sign was more alarming and delightful. A friend who owns a neighboring gallery sent me a WhatsApp message on Thursday. "Alice, what's gotten into Mr. Blackwood? He called me today furious, saying the Bastos Gallery disrespected him, that they called him at 10 a.m. to demand a decision on a sculpture. He said, 'Has that boy Hector learned nothing about etiquette? He's canceling his visit to your booth at Art Basel.'" I just replied with a thinking face emoji. The first landmine had detonated. Hector's call came on Saturday night. His tone wasn't one of panic yet, but of a confused irritation. "Alice, how strange. Blackwood canceled his visit. Do you have any idea why? I followed the handbook to the litter, called at 10 a.m. as it was written." "What a shame, Hector," I said with a voice of false solidarity. "Sometimes collectors are temperamental. Maybe he was just having a bad day." "And the insurance for Cloud. The carrier said the standard policy doesn't cover neon. You never told me that." "It's all in the handbook," I lied smoothly. "It must be in one of the advanced logistics sections. It's a very complete document. Maybe you skipped that part." He was silent for a moment, doubt beginning to eat away at his arrogance. He couldn't accuse me of anything, because, technically, I had done nothing wrong. The information was in there. Or rather, its absence was perfectly disguised.
"I have to go, Hector. I have an appointment," I said, ending the conversation. His panic wasn't a fire yet, but I could smell the smoke. And Art Basel, the true trial by fire, was just a few days away. The atmosphere backstage at Art Basel was electric chaos. Models, makeup artists, producers, all rushing around in a last-minute frenzy. At the center of it all, like a Roman emperor before the games, was Hector. He was shouting orders, adjusting a detail on a dress, giving interviews to TV crews, all at the same time. He was in his element. I was there with my clipboard and my impassive CFO face, officially to approve the final emergency payments. In reality, I was the silent spectator of the final act of his farce. I was the only person in that venue who knew that this empire of glamour was about to turn to dust. My phone vibrated discreetly in my pocket. A message from my contact, the consultant. Just 3 words. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., headquarters. The warrant had been issued. The raid was scheduled. Later, amidst the chaos, a young journalist from a gossip magazine stopped me. "Alice, is it true what they say, that you and Hector had many conflicts, but now you're his biggest supporter?" I forced a tired smile. Hector is a creative genius. My job is to ensure his vision becomes a reality, no matter the cost. The answer was perfectly ambiguous. To the journalist, it sounded like loyalty. To me, it was the purest truth. I was, in fact, ensuring that his vision, with all its frauds and excesses, would become a very public and very legal reality. That night, Hector threw an exclusive party for the team and the press at the most expensive hotel in the city. He was exultant, toasting with champagne and receiving praise. At one point, he saw me in a corner and came over, his ego inflated by alcohol and adulation. "You know, Hector," he said, his voice slurring slightly, "I have to admit, you've learned your place. You've become an excellent facilitator. Maybe there's a future for you in this new empire after all." He was offering me crumbs from his throne, believing I should be grateful. "I just do my duty, Hector," I replied, with a calmness that disarmed him. "Tomorrow is your big day. Enjoy every moment." He smiled, patted my shoulder, and walked away to receive more applause. He had no way of knowing that while he was dreaming of the next day's headlines of glory, I was dreaming of the very different headlines that were already being prepared. The storm was no longer gathering. It was already upon us, just waiting for the clock to strike 9. The stage is set for the public humiliation. Stories of women who plan their revenge with the precision of an artist are the soul of our channel. If you admire that strategy, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the final masterpiece. The opening night of Art Basel, the air was buzzing with the energy of millions of dollars changing hands, of reputations being made and destroyed. The Bastos Gallery booth, which should have been the epicenter of the event, was a portrait of despair. Cloud by Lita Vance was there, but it was turned off. Without the proper insurance, the crew had refused to plug it in, fearing any liability. It was just a tangle of dark glass tubes, a melancholic skeleton in the center of the space. The cocktail party, which arrived 2 hours late, was an improvised affair with warm drinks and wilted canapes. Hector, a frozen smile on his face, was desperately trying to keep up appearances. He moved through the booth, trying to charm the clients who hadn't already fled, but his usual charisma had been replaced by a thin sheen of sweat and panic. I watched from a distance, chatting with an artist. I didn't have to do anything. Reality was doing the work for me. The coup de grace came in the form of one of the most influential art journalists in the country, a man known for his sharp eye and merciless pen. He approached Hector, who tried to greet him with a hug. "Hector, my dear," the journalist said, sidestepping the embrace. "An interesting evening. Tell me, what is the concept behind the main installation being inert?"
Hector stammered. "It's an artistic statement on the ephemerality of light, on the potential contained within." The journalist looked at him with an almost amused contempt. "I see. And is the absence of Mr. Blackwood, your biggest client, also part of the concept?" Hector turned white. "Mr. Blackwood had an unforeseen engagement." "Curious," the journalist continued, consulting his notepad, because I just saw him at the neighboring gallery's booth, closing a six-figure deal. He seemed quite foreseen. He mentioned something about amateurism and a lack of etiquette. Every word was a nail in the coffin of Hector's reputation. The small crowd of onlookers that had formed around them was now whispering openly. That's when the artist who was next to me, a man I had represented for years, approached the group. "The problem, my dear journalist," the artist said, with his deep, respected voice, "is that this gallery has lost its soul. Hector is an excellent host, but the maestro who conducted this orchestra, the woman who understood not just art but people, is no longer here. And without her, as you can see, all that's left is a pretty but silent stage." He looked directly at me from across the booth and gave a slight nod. All eyes turned to me. Hector stared at me, his face a mask of hatred and understanding. In that moment, in front of everyone who mattered in the art world, he got it. He understood the handbook. He understood the insurance, the fine call, the discount, the catering. He understood that every perfect instruction I had left him was a step towards his public humiliation. I didn't say a word. I just raised my glass of warm champagne in a silent toast. A toast to his meticulously planned failure. That year's Art Basel wasn't remembered for the art, but for the Bastos Gallery disaster. It became an instant legend, an anecdote told with a mixture of horror and amusement in art circles. The society columns didn't talk about sales, but about Hector's humiliation, the dark booth, the warm champagne. The financial impact was catastrophic. The few clients who weren't directly insulted lost their trust. The most important artists, seeing the management's incompetence, began to seek other galleries. In less than 6 months, the once powerful Bastos Gallery, which had seen a decade of growing profits, was operating in the red. Hector, in a desperate move, tried to sue me. He accused me of industrial sabotage, of breach of contract, but his lawyers abandoned him after reading the handbook. There wasn't a single line that could be legally used against me. Every instruction was technically correct. I had merely omitted the human touch, the knowledge that can't be patented. The genius of my revenge was in its absolute legality. The lawsuit was dismissed before it even began. He came to see me one last time, not at the gallery, which now had the air of a mausoleum, but in a hotel lobby. He looked like a shadow of his former self. The charisma had been replaced by a deep bitterness. "Why, Alice?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Why did you have to destroy me?" I looked at him, and for the first time, I felt neither anger nor satisfaction. I felt a kind of pity. "I didn't destroy you, Hector," I replied with sincerity. "I just stepped aside and let your own incompetence do the work. I gave you the perfect handbook to be yourself, and you followed it to the letter. This was the result. You could have warned me. You could have helped me. I helped you for 15 years, Hector. I helped build your name, your reputation, your fortune, and in return, you discarded me like a piece of old furniture. You didn't want a partner, you wanted a servant, and when the servant leaves, the king discovers he doesn't know how to tie his own shoes." He fell silent, defeated by the truth. His ruin wasn't caused by an act of mine, but by the absence of them. The Bastos Gallery didn't close, but it shrank into a shadow of its former self, selling second-rate works to minor clients. Hector, I hear, now lives off his inheritance, a retired socialite who occasionally appears at events, but is no longer taken seriously in the art world. His name has become a verb, to hectorize, the act of ruining a successful business through sheer arrogance and incompetence.
As for me, I didn't have to look for a new job. The offers came to me. But the most interesting one came from that Swiss collector Hector had insulted at the fair. "Miss Faraz," he told me, on a video call from his Zurich office with a Picasso on the wall behind him, "I don't just collect arts. I collect talent and integrity.
What happened at the Bastos Gallery was a tragedy, but it was also a demonstration of your true value. The art market needs more people like you. He didn't offer me a job, he offered me funding to open my own gallery, with my name on the door anywhere in the world I wanted, on one condition, that I manage his investments in the art world. He didn't just want a gallerist, he wanted a trusted partner. Today, the Faraz Gallery, with locations in Sao Paulo and Lisbon, is one of the most respected in the world. We don't seek glamour or headlines. We seek genuine talent, art with a soul. And we represent our artists and clients with the same blend of precision and care that I have always believed to be the foundation of our work. The Vengeance Handbook, as I secretly call it, is stored in a safe. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder that in any business there are systems, processes, data. But there are also the nuances, the relationships, the knowledge that doesn't fit on a spreadsheet. True management isn't about creating a perfect handbook. It's about being the person who knows what to do when the handbook fails. My revenge wasn't writing that handbook. It was proving that I was indispensable, not because I possessed a secret, but because I was the secret itself. And in the end, that was the most satisfying work of art I have ever created. Alice's story shows us that the most intelligent revenge is giving your enemy the tools for their own destruction. If you were inspired by her strategy, please leave a like so YouTube can share this story with more people. And of course, if you're not yet part of our community, subscribe now so you don't miss any stories. It's amazing how narratives like this can connect people from all over. So we can get an idea of how far our stories are reaching, please comment below what city, state, or country you're watching from right now. We would love to see our community on the map. Take care, and until the next story.